Hello friends and welcome to this video on Authentic English, and today we'll discuss the poem Birches by Robert Frost. I would like to make you a request. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, you can do that now by hitting the subscribe button below and also by clicking the bell icon next to it so that you're notified about all the new videos. So let me give you a brief intro about this poem Birches. It can be a little tricky poem for people at this level to understand. So I'll try to make it as easy as possible by giving you clear summaries of how things are and what to expect from this poem. So first of all, let's get to know what this poem is all about. What is the meaning of birches? So birches refers to a type of tree which grows in typically of cold areas. So birches are soft trees with stems that can be bent easily. So this poem talks about trees. In the poem Birches, the speaker talks about the bent birch trees he sees after an ice storm. So what happens is that when the ice storms come, these birch trees, as I told you before, they are easy to bend. So their stems get bent. They get bent. You can look at the picture that I'll give you in the next slide. There you can see how birch trees are bent. In fact, here also you can see this picture. So you can see that these are birch trees, and just because of the ice storm they are bent. So this is what the speaker is talking about. Okay, so this is again basically a nature poem, but there are a lot of other themes as well. So we'll try to understand what this is all about. So what happens is the speaker, that is the narrator of the poem, sees birch trees that are bent after an ice storm. Okay, so the stems of the trees are all bent because they have been hit by an ice storm. He knows that the trees are bent by the strong ice storm, but still chooses to think that they are bent by a boy who is playing with the trees because he's reminded of his childhood days on Seek the Side when he used to swing on them too. So now what happens is that these birch trees, okay, little boys in England, basically in America. Okay, so this poem is of American origin. Robert Frost was an American author, so he's talking basically about this American landscape. So this used to be a pastime for country boys, for boys who lived outside the cities, that they used to swing on the birch trees. So this is all long ago. This does not happen now. Okay, so when Robert Frost was young, so he also played on the birch trees. But here we choose we have to find the voice of the narrator. That the narrator who is an adult man is reminded of his childhood. So what happened in his childhood was that he used to swing on these birch trees. Okay, so the stems were very soft, they used to get bent easily, so he used to bend the stems of all these birch trees. So now when he's seeing these birch trees bent by the ice storm, he's thinking that no, how good it would be to think that some boy has bent them. But then he knows, so this is what he's imagining, that a boy must have bent these stems. But the reality is that these have been bent by ice storms. So he's reminded of his childhood when he used to bend those stems. So this is the main idea of the poem. By seeing the birch trees, he's reminded of his childhood when he used to bend the trees himself. Okay, and now he chooses to think that these trees that I'm seeing hit by the ice storm, that are bent, they are bent not by the ice storm but by the by some little boy. So this is what he's thinking. So this is imagining. The poem essentially is about choosing deliberately to see things in a different light, to escape into a wonderful and happy world. So the question is that this narrator, okay, the speaker, he's probably not happy with his life. Okay, or at least he needs a break. That when one grows up, life becomes monotonous, life becomes uneasy. There are a lot of responsibilities in the adult world. So what he's doing is deliberately choosing to revisit his childhood. He's imagining that now I'm back to my childhood. So he's deliberately seeing things in a different light to escape into a world which is happy and wonderful. Okay, so this is what is happening in the poem. This is what the poem is all about. In the poem, the adult speaker is taken into his childhood when he sees the birch trees and imagines that some boy must have swung on them, although playing with them doesn't bend them that way. Okay, so the ice storms have bent the trees badly, but when a boy played with them, they did not bend so badly. So the speaker is unaware that they are definitely not bent by a boy but by the ice storms, but he still chooses to think that how because it gives him pleasure to think that they have been bent by some boy. So I hope I'm able to make myself clear. So this is a little tricky poem to understand, as I said. So it's all about, bending birch trees and all of that stuff. The speaker shifts into another imaginative world, which is far from the harsh realities of the real world. So in the real world, the trees have been bent by the ice storm, but in his imaginative world, the trees are bent by some boy. So the speaker is shifting into an imaginative world, which is far from the harsh realities of the real world. So he's leaving the real world behind and shifting into an imaginative world. So this is what is happening in the poem. So one of the themes of this poem is about youth, that the adult speaker wants his youth and his childhood days back. So childhood, youth, these are the important themes in this poem. Okay, this alternate world provides the speaker with a sense of happiness. Okay, so a temporary happiness, as long as he can imagine that he's in his childhood and he's playing with the birch trees. So some happiness is provided to the speaker, although this happiness is very temporary. However, the narrator cannot find happiness by swinging on birch trees the same way again. In real life, he cannot, swing on the birch trees the same way again, because first of all, they have been hit by the ice storm, they are already bent, and secondly, he's now an adult. People would laugh at him if he, climbs up the birch trees, and he's now too big to climb on those trees and bend them that way. So he cannot do it that in real life, but in his imagination, he imagines himself to be a little boy and do that thing again that he used to enjoy so much in his childhood. So as a matter of fact, Robert Frost also used to swing on these birch trees. So it's like a very personal poem to an extent. However, the narrator cannot find happiness by swinging on birch trees the same way again, since he is now an adult with responsibilities and has to acknowledge the fact that ice storms have swayed the birches. So he cannot deny the fact that he cannot deny the reality. So now reality has to be present altogether with the imagination. So imagination can provide you temporary relief, but you cannot forget the reality and all that process. However, the poem makes us believe that happiness can be found anywhere if we change our perspective, and things can be good if you choose to see them that way. So one of the ideas that come out of this poem is that if you choose to see things in a different light, you can definitely find goodness in those things. So this is something very important. So even a dull situation can be seen as beautiful by a person who is optimistic. The poem just makes the impression that happiness can be found in little things. So little things, can give us joy and happiness. Another point is that why one imagines alternate realities. Okay, so another point that comes out of this poem is, why is he imagining all these alternate realities that they have been swung by some little boy? Perhaps because he's not happy in his present life. Of course, we know as one grows up, the responsibilities, they all kind of put us down up to an extent. So these are all the things. And another question that arises is, and can our imaginations actually set us free? Imaginations can set us free only for the time that we are imagining. Now once he's back to his work, once he's back to his responsibilities, that happiness fades away. So all these happiness is temporary, but however, the happiness exists, although for a short period of time. So this is the idea of the poem. There is another poem by Robert Frost that I like a lot, and I would like you to read it. Nothing Gold Can Stay. So it also talks about somewhat similar ideas, that good things do not last long. So if you want, you can read this poem known as Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost himself. So there are many themes and many discussions that can be made on this poem. So we'll go through this poem line by line, and I'll try to explain you all of this poem. The world becomes a trap again, and these imaginary situations offer only a temporary escape. So what your imaginary situations are not able to provide you complete happiness. They only provide you happiness for a certain period of time. So now let's begin with the first paragraph of the poem. When I see birches bent to left and right across the lines of straighter, darker trees, I like to think that some boy has been swinging them. But swinging doesn't bend them down to stay as ice storms do. Often you must have seen them loaded with ice a sunny winter morning after a rain. They click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many-colored. As the stir cracks and crazes their enamel, soon the sun's warmth makes them set crystal cells. Okay, so in this poem, in this first stanza, or there is no stanza actually in the poem, so I've divided it into stanzas myself. So okay, there are no stanzas, so I have divided it on my own. In the first stanza, the speaker sees bent birch trees and then compares them with the straighter trees around. So the birch trees are bent, and then there are straighter trees around. So there is a contrast between the two kinds of trees. There are trees that do not bend in the ice storm, but then there are trees like the birches that are bent. So when I see birch trees bend to left and right across the lines of straighter, darker trees. So birch trees are lighter in color. The other trees around are straighter and darker. So birch trees are kind of young. Okay, so they have a youthful vibe in them. They are like, children. While the other trees that are around are like adults. They are straight, they are dark, they do not bend. While these birch trees are soft. When one is able to bend them. So these trees, they have themselves, convey a youthful vibe. So he likes to think that some boy has been swinging them. When he sees bent birch trees, he likes to think that some boy has been swinging on them, and that's why they are bent. But swinging doesn't bend them down to stay, as ice storms do. But when they are bent by ice storms, they are permanently kind of bent down. But when one swings on them, they do not bend so terribly. So this is what is being conveyed through these lines. Okay, often you must have seen them loaded with ice a sunny winter morning. So he's addressing the public, the readers now, with the word you, that you must have seen them bent after an ice storm. So I've shown you the picture. He wants us to experience this firsthand. They click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many colored. Okay, so what happens is the ice on the trees reflects. Okay, so first of all, it's loaded with, often you must have seen them loaded with ice a sunny winter morning, and they click upon themselves as the breeze rises. Okay, so during the storm, what happens is the trees are covered in sheets of ice. The ice on the trees reflects colorfully when the wind blows. The ice on the trees reflects colorfully, and when the wind blows, the ice covered branches produce a cracking sound. So when the ice on these branches rub against each other, they produce a cracking sound. So this crack and craze refers to the sound that is produced. The ice covering the trees and its lenticels is compared with glossy enamel. So the ice is like a very shiny coating that is covering the trees and its lenticels. Lenticels are small spaces on the trees. So it's like the tree is being covered with a glossy substance, which is ice. Okay, so the trees are said to be covered with enamel. Okay, as the wind blows, this enamel cracks and breaks. So when the wind blows, this ice gets broken in the wind. So ice cracks and breaks. Warmed by the sun, the ice melts and falls on the ground as crystals. So what happens is, when the sun is shining, the ice melts and it falls on the ground as crystals. Okay, and becomes like a huge pile of broken glass that has to be swept away. As the breeze rises and turns many-colored, as the stir cracks and crazes the enamel, soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells. So the ice falls as crystals on the ground, shattering and avalanching on the snow crust. So the ground is all covered with snow, and all on that, what happens is that these crystals fall. Such heaps of broken glass to be swept away, like broken glass that has to be swept away. You'd think the inner dome of heaven had fallen. The inner dome of heaven can mean the sky and can bring into the mind the old beliefs. Okay, so it can mean like the sky has fallen itself. Okay, so it's a very kind of an important line in a certain sense, that he's saying that the ice has fallen on the ground. The inner dome of heaven can mean the sky and bring into the mind the old beliefs. And the dome built by Kublai Khan didn't last. So Kublai Khan was an emperor who built a dome in the sky, but what happened was the dome fell down. This can imply good things don't last, or his imaginations offer only a temporary escape. So what happens is that, just like this ice on the birch trees, it does not last long. In a similar fashion, the imaginations only offer a temporary escape, or good things do not last long. Just like his youth is over now. So many ideas can be conveyed by this statement. It's on you to choose how you see it. You'd think the inner dome of heaven had fallen. They are dragged to the withered bracken by the load. So what happens is, this is an imaginative idea, not scientifically true. The trees are bent as they touch the shrubs on the ground. Now what happens is the trees are so much bent that they are touching the ground and all the shrubs that are growing on the ground. Now bracken refers to the shrubs, all those short plants that are growing on the ground. They are dragged to the withered bracken by the load, and they seem not to break, though once they are out for so long, they never right themselves. Okay, so the birch trees, even after being bent so much, like they are touching the ground, they do not break, though once they are about so long for now, they never right themselves. So although they do not break, they are never able to become erect again. Okay, so they are never able to become straight again. So in a certain sense, they are broken. The trees are bent and they touch the shrubs. As they touch the shrubs, that is bracken on the ground, problems in life often make us go down much like the trees. So another idea, another general idea that can be interpreted from these lines is problems in life make us go down much like the trees. However, the trees do not actually break but bend. However, they don't straighten themselves. Harsh problems in life often do the same, and we should try not to break in the face of them. So we also should try, not to break in the face of these problems. However, the problem is too hard, we are never able to, become straight. So this is some depressing idea that can be interpreted from these lines. As I told you before, Robert Frost's poems can be interpreted in so many different ways, and it all depends on the critics and how you choose to believe in it, that you try to analyze it. Now let's move on. Years afterwards, trailing their leaves on the ground like girls on hands and knees, they throw their hair before them over their heads to dry in the sun. But I was going to say, when truth broke in with all a matter of fact about the ice storm, I should prefer to have some boy bend them. As he went out and in to fetch the cows, some boy too far from town to learn baseball, whose only play was what he found himself somewhere went and could play alone. The speaker says that years later one may find the bent trees with their new leaves, like girls who are bent on their hands and knees, drying their hair in the sun by bending their heads. So years later also, the trees do not straighten themselves. The speaker says that years afterwards, the trees can be found bent, just like girls who are bent on their hands and knees, and those who have their hair over their heads, to dry them in the sun. So there are girls who put their hair all over their face, and then they, bend on this, sit on their hands and knees to dry them. So the trees are compared to girls who are drying their hair in the sun. So this is a nice comparison. So this is happening, that the trees are bent just like the girls who are drying their hair in the sun by throwing their hair over their heads, and being bent on their hands and knees. So you can imagine it in your imagination. Before them over their heads to dry in the sun. But I was going to say, when truth broke in with all her matter of fact about the ice storm. Now what is the truth? Now you can see that the T in the truth is capitalized, which means it's personified. The truth is that the trees are bent actually by the ice storms. I should prefer to have some boy bend them. So he does not want to accept the truth that the trees have been bent by the ice storm, but he prefers to have some boy bend them. He likes to think that they are bent by some boy. And now he's describing what sort of a boy it is that who bends the birch trees. As he went out and in to fetch the cows, this boy is one, a country boy. He's not living in the cities, so he has cows to look after. So he is the kind of a boy who has cows to look after. Some boy too far from town to learn baseball, and since he's away from the town, he's not able to learn baseball, whose only play was what he found himself. So he used to play alone. So there was nobody for him to play with. So there is an idea of alone, solitude, that is there in this poem, that boy used to play alone. And this playing alone, just bending the birch trees, just the boy, you can imagine that all of these bring some beautiful pictures to our mind. So this boy, he used to live away from the town. He did not know baseball, so his only play was what he found himself, summer or winter, and could play alone. So this is what is conveyed in this poem. So in this stanza, summer or winter and could play alone, this boy can play alone. The speaker comes back to the topic of bent trees and says, when he realized the truth of bent birch trees, he would like to think some boy bend them. A country boy is alone, does not play baseball and grazes cows. The speaker wishes to think this country boy sung them because being alone he had only nature to delight him. So he had nobody to play with him except nature. One by one, he subdued his father's trees by riding them down over and over again until he took the stiffness out of them. And not one but hung limp, not one was left for him to conquer. He learned all there was to learn about not launching out too soon and so not carrying the tree away clear to the ground. He always kept his poise to the top branches, climbing carefully with the same pains he used to fill a cup up to the brim and even above the brim. Then he flung outward, feet first, with a swish, kicking his way down through the air to the ground. Now, in this stanza, the speaker describes how the boy played with the trees. So you can see that this, description is very detailed. It's actually transferring him back to his childhood. That is why there is such a detailed description that tells us that the narrator has experienced the swinging of birches firsthand, and that is why he's able to describe it so beautifully. The speaker continues imagining the boy as he swings on the birch trees on his father's land. So he swung over all the trees that there were in his father's land by riding them down over and over again, and he climbed again and again on those trees until he took the stiffness out of them. So the trees did not remain firm any longer, and not one but hung limp. Not one was left for him to conquer. So he conquered. So he, swung on all the trees, and none of the trees was left straight. All the trees became limp and lost their stiffness because the boy swung on them repeatedly. So this is what the narrator is saying. So this is what he is expecting the boy to do. He's in his comparison of the trees that have been actually bent by the ice storms. He learned all there was to learn about not launching out too soon. So the boy, bent the trees only when he reached the top. He did not bend them too early, and so not carrying the tree away clear to the ground. If he launched too early, if he bent the tree too early, the entire tree would be touching the ground. The entire tree would be destroyed. So the boy was careful not to destroy the trees. He only, bent them when he reached the top. He always kept his poise to the top branches. So he reached the top, climbing carefully. He climbed with so much of precision, with the same pains he used to fill a cup up to the brim and even above the brim. So he was very careful, just like when we have to fill a teacup up to the brim, we are very careful so that the tea does not overflow. And when we have to fill the cup fully, even above the brim to the point where the cup ends, we are even more careful. So when the boy was trying to reach the top, he was very careful, just like in this manner. And even above the brim, then he flung around feet first with a swish, kicking his way down through the air to the ground. And then he flung outward, okay, and then he jumped from the top with his feet first, making a swishy noise, and then coming down. So there are a lot of sound imagery in this poem. You have to feel the sounds, swish, and there is a lot cracking, a lot of sound. There is sight, and then there is sound. There is a lot of description. You have to imagine all of this in your mind, kicking his way down through the air to the ground. So you can read what I've written. It will offer you a better idea. Make sure that you read all these paraphrases that I've written. So was I once myself a swinger of birches, and so I dream of going back to be. Now in these two lines he clearly says that once even I used to swing on birches the same way, and I dream of going back to be. It's when I'm weary of considerations. Now considerations means responsibilities. Okay, it's when I'm tired of my responsibilities that I want to take a break. This is what he's saying. I'm an adult now and my life is full of responsibilities, and when I want to take a break from all these responsibilities, I feel like imagining all these situations. And life is too much like a pathless wood, and life seems very kind of lost, where your face burns and tickles with the cobwebs broken across it. So there is an imagery that your face is covered in cobwebs, that now life is full of problems, and one eye is weeping from a twigs having lashed across it open. Okay, and now your eye is also injured and your face is also injured. So this is the kind of imagery that he's painting in front of us, only to tell us that sometimes life can be very painful, life can be very harsh. So in order to escape from all those harsh realities, he is imagining all these things. And trust me guys, even if you begin imagining all these beautiful things sometimes in a while, it definitely can offer an escape, although temporary, from all the harsh realities, and can make you happier. I'd like to get away from the earth a while and then come back to it and begin over. It's then he wants to escape from the earth, escape from the earth in a sense that he wants to escape all his responsibilities and duties, enjoy, have a good time, find some happiness, and then come back and begin over with the work again. So this is what is implied in this stanza. And now let's come to the last stanza of the poem. May no fate willfully misunderstand me and half grant what I wish and snatch me away not to return. So he says, may no higher authority, okay, may no one, not God, somebody like that, some angel, kill him. He does not want to die. That means he said in the earlier stanza that he wants to escape the earth. He's now clarifying himself that I do not mean to die. Earth's the right place for love. He knows that he can find love on the earth. He just says he wants to take a break. He wants to take a break, go on a vacation, and then come back. He does not want to die or just reach heaven, I don't know where it's likely to go better. I'd like to go by climbing a birch tree. So, in order to, kind of escape from the earth for a while, he would like to climb a birch tree and climb back branches up a snow white trunk. Okay? So, he would like to climb black branches up a snow white trunk toward heaven. So, he would reach the top of the tree, and that would kind of take him to the heaven. Climbing the trees would be so blissful for him that it would kind of take him in a very beautiful situation. It would make him go to heaven. Till the tree could bear no more, but dipped its top and set me down again. And then the tree brings him back to the earth, because actually the tree is grounded to the ground. The roots of the tree are in the earth. So you can imagine his idea of having fun. He wants to remain on the earth all the while. He does not want to die. It's just like going on a vacation. By climbing on a birch tree, he can reach the top, see the heaven. But then, since the tree is attached to the ground, the tree will bend and bring him back to the earth. This is the idea, and this is very important. Okay, so he does not wish to die toward heaven till the tree could bear no more, but did stop and set me down again. That would be good, both going and coming back. So what is the good idea? That you go to the heaven, go to a good place where you can enjoy yourself, and then come back. One could do worse than be a swinger of birches. So he's telling people that there are much, happiness can be found even in small things like swinging birches, only if you choose to change your outlook. So I told you the many themes of the poem in the beginning: youth, imagination, happiness. Quest for happiness is another theme in the poem, that that happiness lies within you. If you can change your perspective of things, you can find happiness. The speaker, in the face of the problems he faces, would like to go back to his childhood days and escape from the harsh realities of the world. However, he does not want to come back, and he does want to come back and not die. He has responsibilities to fulfill before he dies. And then you are reminded of those lines: and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So he does not want to escape his responsibilities, and this is something that is very recurring in Robert Frost's poetry. He does not want to escape his duties. In none of his poems does he wants an escape from all these things, but he never says that he wants to escape his duties. Here also he wants to stay on the earth, so he does not want to escape his duties. He has responsibilities to fulfill before he dies. Compare with the poem Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. The speaker then says that no higher power should misunderstand him on what he says and takes away his life, causing him not to return to earth again. So he wants to return to earth again. He does not wish to die because he says he is a lover of life, and love is plentiful on earth. He is sure that he can find love on the earth. Other way to take this is the fact that he kind of does not want to run away from his duties. He kind of tells us that earth is a happy place to be. Okay, so you can enjoy your life on earth. So it's a message to all the people who think that life is very bad, and so he is asking us that if you only choose to change your imagination, you can find happiness on earth as well. In the final lines, the speaker clearly says he'd like to climb trees again, just like he did in the childhood. He'd want to reach towards heaven by climbing a birch tree. The roots of the birch tree are on the earth, and on its tip one can get a glance of the heaven. Thus, climbing of the birch tree can give the speaker the required break. So, climbing on birch trees can give him the break he needs, and give him the happiness he desires for. The going and coming back, that is sort of like a vacation, would be refreshing. Even small things like climbing birches or just imagining them can bring happiness. So this was the poem Birches by Robert Frost. So there are a lot of questions that can be framed upon this poem. So if you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment section below, and I'll be more than happy to help. And if you have not subscribed to the channel right now, please subscribe to it. And if you like the video, please give a thumbs up and share with your friends. Thanks, and bye-bye.